Love County, Oklahoma, is on the southern border of Oklahoma and had a population of 10,146 people reported during the 2020 census. Love County is home to WinStar World Casino that is operated by the Choctaw Nation and is the county's largest employer. Agriculture and ranching are also a huge part of the economy for Love County. According to this beautiful marker found in Marietta, Oklahoma, Love County has a rich historical significance to Oklahoma and the nation. Carved from the Louisiana Purchase and acquired from the Choctaw Nation by the Chickasaw Nation, the county was named for the Loves, a prominent Chickasaw family. Early settlers influenced how the frontier area would be shaped. The area supported early day commerce, numerous ferry crossings, and some of the first trading posts in the Indian Territory. Cattle ranchers such as Bill Washington controlled large Indian holdings. The Arbuckle Trail near Overbrook was laid out by Jesse Chisholm of the Chisholm Trail fame. Cotton was the major crop grown from the late 1800s to the mid-1900s, contributing to the greatest inland cotton market in the world. Love County has a beautiful and rich history with a close-knit community, and it also has a dark secret that has left a scar on this county since July 7th, 2013. That was the day that a disappearance that is almost 13 years old now began and begs far more questions than answers.
The events that led up to the disappearance of Colt and Molly on the night of July 7th, 2013, began in Wilson, Oklahoma. Wilson is in Carter County, the neighboring county of Love County. That night, Colt Haynes, age 21, and Molly Miller, age 17, were riding as passengers in a 2012 Honda Accord driven by James Con Nip, age 21. Mr. Nip went by Con to many of the locals. Now, how these three ended up being all in the same car together that night is a bit of a mystery in itself. Colt and Molly had only known each other for about a week at this point, and they had been staying at a house together in Wilson. There seemed to be possibly some sort of tension between Colt and Con as well. Colt had become a father to a baby boy in 2012, and the mother of that baby boy ended up being in a relationship with Con after that. Nonetheless, Con picks Colt and Molly up that night to ride around. Con, who had a reputation for being a local bad boy and initiating car chases with police, later catches the eye of two Wilson police officers in a gas station parking lot by driving recklessly and doing donuts in front of them. This does in fact lead to a police pursuit at about 10:30 p.m. Con led the police officers on a high-speed chase down Highway 76 that eventually entered Love County. It is then that Love County takes over the chase, with the chase going at 120 miles per hour at some points, and Con having turned his headlights off in the pursuit. Love County called the chase off. There are several accounts of where exactly the chase ended and why exactly the chase was called off, but ultimately the chase does end in the area of Long Hollow Road, dead-end road, near Nip family property in that area. It is important to note here that the Love County Sheriff at this time, Joe Russell, was a cousin of James Con Nip. Whether this played a role in calling off the chase and also a lack of police response after the fact, and documentation of the incident after the chase is all in question. Was the sheriff covering for his cousin? After the pursuit ends, Colt and Molly both make a series of cell phone calls. Molly first calls 911 at 12:47 a.m. The call only lasts a few seconds before being dropped. She made several more calls to 911 after that, over a dozen back-to-back calls. All of them too are dropped. Dispatchers try calling Molly back with no answer, and despite her making several attempts to reach 911, officers are never dispatched to the area that night. Colt made calls to friends stating he had an ankle injury, had climbed up a tree and fallen out breaking a bone, was coughing up blood, and was lying in a creek bed. He told them he was in the area of Long Hollow Road and Pike Road. His friends state they drove all in the area that night, honking their horns while on the phone with Colt, but he never heard them, and he was never located. Molly called friends as well. She stated that she was stranded in a field, and her cell phone data pinged in the area of Long Hollow and Pike Roads as well. Molly's last contact with anyone was a phone call made at 9:33 a.m. to a friend where she states she is on Pike Road and needed a ride. Despite her attempts to call for help, Molly was never located. Over the course of the night, over 30 calls were placed to family and friends. It is believed that Colt and Molly stayed together during this time, as they each could be heard in the background of each other's phone calls. During that last call Molly made at 9:33 a.m., her phone dies at 9:39. Shortly after, Colt's phone dies as well. Neither Colt nor Molly are heard from again. What happened to Colt Haynes and Molly Miller? Con Nip, however, is found alive and well the very next day at home. Friends of Colt that were out in the area looking for him that early morning run into Con. Con plays it off as Colt and Molly are lying and everything's fine and they're both okay. Colt, still on the phone at this time, hears Con and his accusations, and he asks to speak to Con. Unfortunately, we do not know what was said during that conversation. However, after this, Con tells the friends searching for Molly and Colt that they are in a specific area of the Nip property. He doesn't give them permission to search the property. However, following the encounter with Con, he later denies even being with Colt and Molly that night. Despite cell phone records proving this to be false, he maintains that story to this day. Searches for Colt and Molly started right away. However, access to the Nip property was limited, and it wasn't clear if the pair were just on the run. Despite coming up missing in Love County, Sheriff Joe Russell refused to take a missing persons report of Molly, and he refers her family to Wilson, Oklahoma, where the chase began. The back and forth between the two counties only added to the confusion in this case. It wasn't until 2 weeks later that the 2012 Honda Accord was found wrecked near where the police chase had ended. The car ended up being about 100 yards from where Colt and Molly's phones last pinged. Forensic testing of the car showed there was no signs of blood or foul play, and there were no signs of Colt and Molly around the car. However, the Honda that was driven by Con that night was owned by Con's girlfriend, Sabrina Graham. She had reported the car stolen that night and filed an insurance claim on the vehicle. Sabrina was later arrested and charged in January 2014 with filing a false insurance claim and a false police report. It was learned that she did in fact give Con permission to drive the Honda that night. Sadly, neither Con nor Sabrina have cooperated with the authorities concerning the disappearance of Colt and Molly. Despite other agencies outside of Love County and the Wilson Police Department being involved, like the OSBI, Oklahoma State Bureau of Investigations, the FBI, and the Bureau of Indian Affairs, more questions than answers remain. Shortly after their disappearance, the family hired a prominent PI from Texas, Mr. Philip Klein, to look for answers. One thing that seemed to be a constant was that Love County failed to document much of the key evidence in this case. It has also been said that Con and his family were allowed access to the evidence room that held evidence in Colt and Molly's disappearance, alone and unsupervised. Molly's family has been very vocal in police corruption in this case. And sadly, after nearly 13 years of Colt and Molly being missing, mystery of where the two are remain.
Welcome back to Darkness Debaters. I hope all of our family is doing well. I'm Mandy.
And I'm Brandy.
How are you doing, Brandy?
I'm doing well. I'm ready to dive deep into this case concerning Colt and Molly. It's a deep dive. I'll just say that. It's a deep dive for any of our listeners.
Oh, man.
that have never heard of this case.
Yeah.
There's so many elements and so many theories, and in the end, there's two missing young people who are still missing after 13 years. And families want answers. They want peace. They want resolution. And so here we are just to present the facts that we've uncovered. Maybe some are rumors. There's a lot of those going around on the internet regarding this case.
Yeah.
But nonetheless,
I understand it's a very small kind of community. Like the county is pretty small and tight knit. There's only like 10,000 people in the whole county. So, yeah, rumors are going to spread, and there's going to be people going, oh, I know this, I know that don't know anything. Or they're just spreading something that they heard somebody else say. And methamphetamines is rampant through there. So there's a lot of drug use. I want to preface this episode, this whole case, by saying there are references to drug use here. And it is alleged that Molly and Colt were using drugs, possibly methamphetamines. I want us to keep in mind that we are talking about a 17-year-old girl and a 21-year-old man. And just because they were making maybe some bad choices that they shouldn't have been making, or hanging out with people they shouldn't have been hanging out with, should not have condemned them to a death sentence. And I don't believe, there's one theory that they just ran away, and I don't believe that at all. There is absolutely nothing in this case to make me think that Molly had a crush on Colt, that they'd known each other for a week and they just sailed off into the sunset. I don't buy that. I don't buy that for a second. I think that is a betrayal of intelligence. The people who are trying to pass that off is what happened. That is a betrayal of intelligence.
I agree. So here at Darkness Debaters Podcast, we like to remember that our victims in our cases are human beings. They had lives and futures ahead of them. So I wanted to put something together that talked about Colt and Molly and who they were as people. Two young people who should be living lives with their families and loved ones. I reached out to Colt's family, and they respectfully declined comment. In a way, I can kind of understand they're declining a comment. It's been 13 years. Maybe they've hashed this out with several different other podcasters, and they're just done with that part of it. So I did some digging around on social media, and I found a little bit of information about Colt to share with our viewers, to just remind them that he ultimately isn't just a name behind a missing persons case. Colt Rydell Haynes was only 21 when he went missing. Friends and family describe him as having the bluest eyes, a bright smile, and fun to be around. He did, like we mentioned, have some run-ins with the law prior to his disappearance. According to court documents, he had a few charges ranging back to approximately 2010, and they were mostly due to drug use. His family says that he started sporadically using drugs in his teenage years, and when he would be using, he would disappear from the family. For a short period of time, he would always reach back out. Colt had a pending court case, and when he went missing, the court issued a bench warrant for a no-show on Colt. He had been in a sort of a rehabilitation program, and his probation officer was seeing that he was still hanging around the same people, in the same drug scene, and wasn't making any progress. So he had wanted him to come back and check back in with the court, and he failed to show after his disappearance. So a bench warrant was issued for his arrest after his disappearance. However, Colt had recently become a father to a beautiful baby boy in October of 2012.
He's adorable.
Yes, and according to Facebook posts, he seemed to be a doting and loving father, and he seemed to want to turn his life around for his baby boy. So, any notion that Colt ran away from his court responsibilities kind of is not looked in favor of, because he has a son that is missing him. So, we don't know. Maybe him becoming a father was the thing that was going to turn his life around. Unfortunately, he never got that opportunity. Molly Miller was born April 30th, 1996. Molly was half Native American, which is what prompted the Bureau of Indian Affairs to eventually become involved in this case.
Yeah, she's a member of the Chickasaw Nation.
Yes. It was stated that she had blue eyes, and naturally she had brown hair, but she dyed her hair black. She was just 17 when she disappeared. She had just completed her junior year of high school. She was very athletic. She loved to play softball and basketball, and she was aspiring to eventually be a nurse as her career. Molly was very close to her grandparents and even lived with her grandparents for quite a bit. After Molly's grandmother passed away, Molly kind of took that hard, and she started hanging around the wrong crowd, getting into the wrong things socially, and that's how she became involved in drug use. Molly did have a habit of running away, but she would always reach out and return. Her family just desperately wants answers. They want to know where she is, and they want to bring her home.
Yeah. In researching into this case and comparing things and looking at different cases in the past, what I've seen is typically in runaway situations, it's resolved quickly. Anywhere from 3 days to 2 weeks, they're usually home. Someone has heard from them. Neither one of Molly or Colt had anything in their background that would suggest that they would have taken off this long. I mean, we're looking at almost 13 years.
Yeah.
And they're still gone. And Molly's grandfather passed away, and still no word from Molly. I cannot see, as close as she was to her grandfather, if she had just run away somewhere, she would still be keeping up. Somebody would be feeding her information. She would be keeping up with her grandpa. And there is nothing on this earth that could have kept her from him when he was dying and after he passed and his funeral, unless she was already dead herself. And Colt would not have chosen to not see his son grow up. He just would not have. I haven't seen one thing that suggests that Colt didn't want his son or didn't want to be a dad or wasn't interested. I mean, what I've seen, his friends have described him as a good-hearted guy who occasionally got in trouble, but he was trying to get his life back on track. And the thing he had going on with court his son being born, he had a lot of reasons to change. And that's typically what it takes for somebody to make that change. They got to want it. You can't stop these old habits, and you're not going to get off track. I'm a former addict myself. We're just going to be honest about that. It takes a reason to stop. You have to decide you're done. You have to decide there's something better out here for me than doing this drug. And that's how you get into recovery. And I feel like I never talked to Colt myself, so I can't say personally I know this for sure. But by all accounts, Colt was there. Colt was at that point where he was like, okay, it's time. So I really think that he was on his way. I think, but just because he was getting ready to turn life around and getting ready to be on the right track does not mean he was there yet. There's a lot of times an addict and people who are doing the wrong things, they'll want to do it one more time. Let's just do it one more time. Let's get it out of my system. And then I'm gonna, he with all this stuff with the court thing going on, he knew it was coming. He knew, let's have one last party. Would it have been the last party? Who knows? Would he have continued that life and not actually straightened himself up? We have no reason to speculate that he would have not straightened up after this last hurrah, so to speak. But unfortunately, we'll never know.
Yeah.
And Molly wanted to be a nurse. It's likely that Molly would have gotten into her 20s and been a nurse and, gotten herself cleaned up. They might both be very outspoken people helping other people in recovery at this point in time. We will never know. And the reason we will never know, we're at the foot of the first rabbit hole, you guys. We're going to dive into, we want you guys to know who Molly and Colt were, that they were people. They're not just names in a case. And they have families who love them and miss them desperately. But the rabbit holes in this case, I'm warning you now, you're going to get angry. You're going to get angry. You're going to be disappointed. It might change your view of law enforcement and how they do their job, at least in some smaller communities. And I think that's really unfortunate because I know some smaller communities that they would have had this wrapped up in about 10 minutes. They would have never let this stand. But there is a lot of police corruption going on in this case. And I've seen people try to defend the sheriff and say he's not corrupt and he did everything he could. The evidence calls you a liar. The court presented evidence calls you a liar. So, and we're not going off of feeling here. We're not saying, well, we like this sheriff or we don't like this sheriff. This is the evidence that backs up that this man was not a good person, this sheriff, and he did not do his job, and he didn't care that he wasn't doing his job until he wasn't given a choice but to care. So, do you want to take us